So yesterday, the word Nazi came up in the news, which is a word I hadn't heard in the news in a while. And today we got another word in the news that I haven't heard in a while, and that word is, that's right, Taliban. So apparently, Taliban deputy chief arrives in Qatar for talks with the U.S. So let's see what that's all about. Kabul, Afghanistan. The Taliban's deputy leader Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar arrived in Qatar on Sunday, officials said, for what could be the highest level negotiations yet between the insurgents and American diplomats on ending the long Afghan war. I mean, yes, I knew that like we still had troops over there and stuff, but I haven't heard like anything coming out of there in a while. So I mean, sure, it's good to maybe negotiate, but like this is literally the first time I've heard of the Taliban, probably as an adult. I'm almost certain of that. The next round of talks, scheduled to begin on Monday in Doha, the Qatari capital, is expected to focus on the details of a framework deal that the two sides reached in principle last month. Let's check that out. U.S. and Taliban agree in principle to peace framework, envoy says. That's a really good picture. Sorry, guys. That's just a very well done photograph. Americans and Taliban officials have agreed in principle to the framework of a deal in which the insurgents would guarantee Afghan territory is never used by terrorists, which could lead to a full pullout of American troops in return for larger concessions from the Taliban, the chief United States negotiator said on Monday. The negotiator, Zalmay Khalilzad, said those concessions must include the Taliban's agreement to cease fire and to talk directly with the Afghan government, which the insurgents have persistently opposed in the past. Alright, so basically what they were talking about is saying, hey, well, as the Taliban government, not the Taliban government, sorry, but we'll make sure that, our lands aren't being used by terrorists, and I guess we're saying, all right, if you can guarantee that, we'll bounce. So, anyway, under that framework, American troops would withdraw from Afghanistan in return for a Taliban guarantee that Afghan territory would never be used by terrorists. So I guess I didn't have to click on that other link, but whatever. The talks have so far excluded the Afghan government. American officials have said that any final agreement would require the insurgents to meet with Afghan officials and declare a ceasefire to ease the burden of war that is taking lives in record numbers. Visiting Kabul, Zalmay Khalilzad, the special envoy leading the American delegation, said he would be pushing the insurgents to agree to the steps with the Afghan side, a process complicated by deep divisions among the country's government and the political elite. Mullah Baradar's travel to Doha from Pakistan, where he had been detained for years, was confirmed by a Western official who was closely following the peace developments, but who requested anonymity as he was not authorized to speak to the news media. Saeed Akbar Agha, a former Taliban official who still has contacts with the group, also confirmed the move, saying, Mullah Baradar reached Doha an hour ago and he will take part in peace talks with Khalilzad. Man, Middle Eastern names are super cool. I know that's off topic, but like, we got names like Phil and John and Tyler. They got names like Mullah Baradar, Khalilzad, Doha. Oh man, Saeed Akbar Agha, sick. Anyway, Qaid, a former United Nations envoy to Afghanistan, who was involved in some of the earliest peace contacts with the Taliban, said Mullah Baradar's arrival to join the Taliban's negotiators based in Doha was an encouraging sign that the insurgency's top leadership was directly engaging in talks. So I guess they're saying that since Mullah Baradar has come, that's a good sign, since I guess he's part of the top leadership of the Taliban and he's ready to talk about ending this nonsense. Baradar's participation certainly means that the Doha team will become more of a decision-making body than before, Mr. Ide said. From my own experience 10 years ago, I believe that he was already, before his arrest, the most prominent Taliban leader in favor of finding a political settlement. So he's saying before the dude was arrested that he was already trying, maybe not trying, but he was definitely for finding a more peaceful way to end the conflict as opposed to continuing the attacks and fighting and everything that was happening in the Middle East. Mullah Baradar, one of the Taliban's founding leaders, was instrumental in their regrouping as a strong insurgency after the United States toppled the regime in 2001. Around 8 years later, he made contacts with the Afghan government at the time, drawing the ire of the Pakistani military, which has been supporting the Taliban as a proxy force and giving its leadership sanctuary. I mean, that's something we see pretty often, is these forces being used by, as puppets by bigger groups in a proxy war. We've been doing it with Russia for years, having our small little proxy wars. But I guess that's neither here nor there. The mullah was arrested in a joint operation of Pakistani and American agents at a time when the United States military was still pursuing a victory on the battlefield and had not embraced a political resolution to the war. Well, why would we want a political resolution? There's no money in that. We can't have Halliburton making arms and stuff for us. So 10 years ago, that would have been 2009. Well, I think, if I'm wrong, sorry, but I think Obama was elected in 2008. I don't know. So I guess Cheney and his cronies weren't still in office, so, maybe not, but whatever. Mullah Baradar was released from Pakistani custody in October at the request of the American government, which hoped he could help end a war the Trump administration desperately wants behind it. But his delay in arriving in Doha repeatedly raised doubts about how free he actually was, with Afghan officials and some Taliban sources suggesting Pakistan was still closely watching him. Ooh, so they're saying... So they're saying, it appears to me that they're saying that he's not actually free. He could be still being monitored and whatnot, so he's not actually out doing his own thing. I could be reading this wrong, but I think that they're maybe insinuating that he's under Pakistani, control. Maybe he's working with them. I don't know if that's true. Maybe I misinterpreted it. Mullah Baradar's arrival for peace talks gives the Americans a senior interlocutor who can finalize a deal and then use his weight with the Taliban's rank and file to put it in place. Even so, moving the peace talks to the next stage with Afghan government involvement still seems daunting. This guy's been incarcerated in I believe, Pakistan for 10 years, so, I highly doubt that he's still, a high-ranking member of the leadership. I don't think he was calling shots from there. He's probably been replaced by now. This is probably just a puppet show, and make everything look good. I could be wrong about that, as I, say often, but that's what it appears to be to me. Well, not what it appears to be. It appears it could be that. The Taliban have refused to meet with the Afghan government, while President Ashraf Ghani has insisted that the peace talks will not go anywhere unless the insurgents formally sit with his administration. I don't blame them for not wanting to go there. That sounds kind of like a trap. Like, hey, bring your guys here. It'll be fine. We're just going to talk. And, I'm not saying that, the Taliban has a right to keep doing what they're doing, but from their point of view, it certainly doesn't seem like a safe bet to go hang out with the enemy. A large group of Afghan politicians led by former President Hamid Karzai met with the Taliban in Moscow this month in what they hoped could be an icebreaker for broader talks between the groups. But officials in the Ghani government heavily criticized the move, saying it undermined the fragile Afghan state at a critical time. The government and the opposition have also vehemently disagreed over the makeup of a negotiating team for when the Taliban do agree to formal talks with Afghan officials. Mr. Ghani's choice, a group of negotiators that would include several government ministers and be led by his chief of staff, was denounced as unrepresentative by the opposition. Mr. Khalilzad, the American envoy, has also said the government would have to make its team inclusive for negotiations to move forward. So everybody wants their piece of the pie here. They all want to be involved so that they can go back to their respective peoples and be like, hey, we helped end this conflict finally. It was us. Look at what we did. Yeah, give us validation. That's how it appears to me right there anyway. Mr. Ghani has called for a Loya Jargah, a grand consultative meeting of about 2,000 representatives from across Afghanistan next month to define the parameters for talks with the Taliban. Officials hope the meeting could bridge the gap between the positions of the government and the opposition, building consensus for a united peace effort. Meeting of about 2,000 representatives from across Afghanistan. That's pretty cool. Sounds like maybe the Afghanistan version of our Senate committee. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, I'd have to look and see if that's actually what it is, but it sounds like something similar. Mr. Ide, the former United Nations official, said Afghanistan's political establishment needed to unite around the unique opening for peace, or the current momentum could collapse. If that's happening, it may take a long time before another attempt could be made to find a political settlement, Mr. Ide said. So they're saying, we got to do this now before, things get out of hand again. This is our one shot. Let's take it. But that's it for that. I just, like I said, this is the first time I read this. I saw that, I did the video on the Nazi news yesterday, and I saw the word Taliban in this headline, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. Another thing I haven't heard of in even longer. So, I figured I'd check it out, see what that's all about. I think it said that the talks are they hope for them to start next month, so I'm actually kind of interested in this now. I'm going to try and follow it more. So if I find out anything more about it, I'll definitely do another video on it. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching. This has been The News.